Checking in again, State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy is here on the week before Thanksgiving, Tacky.
Yeah, Joe, it's who knew it was this quick to the end of a month. Feels like it's been a lifetime since election day.
I know. I thought we maybe you would get some Thanksgiving Day recipes from Tacky today.
Well, the demand from the family is rack of lamb again. So
Oh, okay. All right.
it takes I have a whole prep process to try to get the gamey out of the lamb. And my mom's family from Connecticut cannot come on the 30th because we generally do Thanksgiving after Thanksgiving, which we have like 5 days of prep, including Thanksgiving Day for prep, which is kind of funny. But we're actually doing something else on Saturday, which I have not been informed exactly how Saturday is going to work out yet.
Oh, it's
So
gonna be a surprise. Okay.
you'd be surprised what I got to do. So unfortunately, there's some really wonderful things happening in the city, including Interfaith Social Services working United Way on Saturday morning at Interfaith on Adams Street to do some turkey and supply giveaway to needing families. And great work that they do along with the Norfolk County Central Labor Council, which is the regional union here. That's an AFIOS affiliate. AFOS affiliate. They will be there helping out. And regretfully, because of my mom's unclearness of what we're doing on Saturday exactly, I will not be able to participate.
Oh, darn. We'll take some pictures and we'll talk about it afterwards.
Folks, even I am submissive to my mother's desires. Uh,
Aren't we all?
yes, thankfully, people are very understanding of that, particularly around the holiday season when I can't do something because mom says so.
That's all the reason you need. Exactly.
She's also 80 now. She had her birthday in October. We talked about this in the past, and um, you guys all know it's whatever it takes to make her happy.
Yeah. So today we're talking on a rainy day for a change, which is good news, actually.
Yeah, about 2 months. I didn't realize there was forest fires going on in the Blue Hills because I left my house. Those who know that I live in Blacks Creek and Wallaston, and the air blows. I didn't, I'm becoming increasingly sensitive to particulates, and I'm fine indoors. But once I leave the house, I start coughing.
Yeah. It's
I
about a
didn't,
50-acre fire, about 50% contained right now.
yeah, I didn't realize. I honestly did not realize I was this sensitive to particulates, especially this level of exposure. And it's not like you can smell the forest fires, but it doesn't mean you can't. The particulates aren't in the air. So yeah, hopefully we'll get an inch, but I don't think the forecast is getting an inch. But ideally, an inch of rain would help. And unfortunately for everybody, keep an eye on your storm drains. The dry weather does not always help your soil absorb quickly,
Hmm.
and you will get a lot of early runoff before the soil starts to adopt, taking it in. And if you see, obviously it's leaves enough. If you see leaves near a storm drain, get a broom if you'd be so kind and just move some of the leaves out of the way and let the storm drains do their job.
Yeah, you'll be helping yourself too by doing that because you could end up flooding your own property.
No, absolutely. And, we got a real problem, obviously, called DBW's emergency hotline. And reminder folks that the drains in Quincy go straight to the ocean. So, we've always, for decades now, remind folks and promote the fact that do not put any kind of waste or chemicals into this drainage system.
Absolutely. Yep. It's verboten for sure. And I know we talked last week about some money that was in the economic bond bill to dredge Quincy Bay.
Yes, yes. And, we still got to get the money out of the governor's office. Just one step at a time. But the authorization's there. We have some time period to get our hands on it. And, this is a long process to get done. It's not really kind of a, one and done deal. You still got to place the money down and get the authorization and get the moving on it inside the existing bond cap. The state does limit how much it bonds, and we do actually have a debt ceiling, which is, by the way, much smaller than the Fed's. In case you're wondering, ratio to the size of your budget, it's very modest. I'm trying to remember what the number is because the number actually moves with CPI, so it
Mhm.
goes up slightly, but it's got to be about 20-ish billion dollars. Against the GDP of an economy that's almost 900 billion, that's significantly.
Pennies.
Yeah, I mean, the Feds are looking at 133% of GDP,
Right.
right? When you took 20 billion against 900 billion, it's not even close to a sizable percentage of the GDP.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So we'll see what happens with that.
Mm. So let's hope for inch of rain.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for a lot of reasons to relieve the drought. Just today, actually, the drought monitor expanded to include just most of Massachusetts now in critical drought stage. So it's one step below emergency.
Yeah, and you know, we get our water from the Quabbin, and most people don't realize that. Let's hope for snow too this winter, especially not on the East Coast, but in Western Mass, because the snowpack's actually very, very important for our water supply. And those communities or wells and towns has been so dry. You know, there's water alerts in some of those communities regarding the fact that you know your wells have been running dry. This has been so no rain, and then you also got some reservoir problems on a regional level. So
Yeah.
yeah, we've always seen weather dry warnings during the hot summers, but I don't remember the last time there was a water shortage warning at this scale in terms of warmer communities in the fall.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think especially November, it's usually, wet, cold, damp. Never a problem with too much water.
Yeah, who would know we'd be begging for cold, wet, damp right now?
Exactly.
So you don't have to stake up in flames.
Yeah,
Being
we don't want that. Yeah. Last week, I remember you mentioned that you wanted to mention had a visit from a Japanese official. Is that right?
Yeah, the Japanese consulate change heads. The consulates around here average lifetime is every 3 years. So, as part of my job, believe it or not, is a bit of diplomatic relations, because Massachusetts is a major trading partner to basically the planet, and I think most people at home don't realize our role in the global economy. Boston, despite being a very small city, is very small actually compared to other cities at 700,000 people, is a international world-renowned city. Most everybody knows where Boston is in the business community in other countries as well as diplomatic corps. And we have about almost 50-ish, if you count the honorary consul generals, which aren't formal consul generals, they're not actually paid by the government, work on behalf of government on a voluntary basis. You know, we have about 50-ish consul generals stationed inside Boston, serving not just Massachusetts, but generally either the 6 New England states or it'd be regional up to point could potentially 15 plus states, depending on the size of the government. So yeah, new Japanese consulate came in, did a kind of a welcome meeting at his home. I try to remember his name is Takagashi, Consul Joe Takagashi, I believe. And that actually I'm back there in December.
Oh,
He has a business group from the Gassi uh, Chamber of Commerce, I believe, and I've got to do some homework before I go visit these folks, because it's always good to do your homework before you visit anybody, to give a sense what the potential conversation may be. And they're actually having a very fun thing that you should visit the Japanese Consulate website, particularly if you've got time in Boston, is that every other Friday, they're going to use the Japanese Consulate office at the Federal Reserve Building for cultural education, as well as discussions about everything from the economy to the climate, to education, to cultural exchange. They're putting up what do they call it? They're putting up open to the public kind of thing. So if you're in Boston and you're interested in not just necessarily Japanese culture, but also international conversation, definitely visit the Japanese Council website. This week they sent me a notice about Japanese opera. They have their own concert, not opera concert. Great, my brain's leaving me on this one. But I mean, it's not like that. They have their own music
okay.
conversation this week. So, I think it's a great way of outreach. I think it's very important for consulates to try to find new ways, not necessarily just reach out to the expats, but also to the general public at large. So, yeah, I fully support these kind of programs.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've walked by the Federal Reserve building a bazillion times, but I've never actually been inside.
Actually, it's a gorgeous building inside. The Federal Reserve is actually incredible. Every time I go to a meeting there, it's always actually a great experience, to be honest with you. I referred to going to people's offices, how the other half lives.
Ah, okay.
When your office at a stand is duct tape holding carpet together. I mean, just saying.
Well, it's an old building.
It's an old building. So yeah, it's they housed the Japanese consulate there. Actually, I think the British consulate's office is on Beacon Hill. The Korean consulate's actually in Newton over the expressway, right at that. Um, I'm sorry, over the turnpike. We have that turnpike turn off to
Mhm.
Newton and Watertown. The Korean consulate's located there. Actually, you have a consulates located in Crown Colony.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think the Cape Verdean consulate, and I'm trying to think of another one is actually located in Crown Colony.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Might be a little special feature to do one day, feature consulates in Quincy.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many little consulates there. I mean, obviously, they're looking for affordable office space.
Hmm.
Another one is an industrialized, wealthy country, and but they need the representation somewhere. Not again, it's an international city, and there's international residents here, and they do trade with us, and they host meetings and conversations. And World Boston is actually a not-for-profit that does like a once a year host of all the consulates to visit Boston. I've gone to a couple of these, and they also host conversations about world affairs at a local level. So you'd be surprised. I mean, I have people that come out of college asking for advice about international affairs, and they'll want to get into this kind of like non-State Department level. They would like to
Yeah.
do more engagement on international affairs in places like
Diplomacy type activities. Yeah.
yeah, World Boston, for example, is a not-for-profit. There's no shortage of Chamber of Commerce related jobs that are interested in certain consulates actually hire locals. So, for example, the Korean consulate hires folks that either come from immigrated from Korea to the U.S. Or people that are directly from Korea. They actually have a dating shift. The Taiwanese government is the same way. I know they're not technically a country, but the Economic Trade Office does that. The Quebecian trade office is a mix. They have people hired locally and have people hired internationally, from home country. Same thing with the Japanese. They have a certain number of staff that come with the consul general, and have a certain number of staff that is hired locally.
Hmm.
And one of my interns actually made it into the Quebecian consulate, Quincy kid, and then now working for the Canadian consulate.
Interesting.
Is
Okay.
looking for another interview opportunity.
It's kind of interesting, actually. I mean, as we know, Paul Salucci was in Quebec, the ambassador there.
Yeah, Quebec. Yeah, Canadian ambassador in Ottawa.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, you can do it. I mean, in this area. I mean, it's not like being in New York or DC, which are much more national cities. But I have an intern that figured it out, and yeah, it is that simple. He figured out how to work his way into international jobs, and even though it's not a U.S. international job, I mean, working for the Canadian consulate's not exactly a threatening place, and it's also convenient because Canada is like there. So when he does hosting trips, so you may have recalled that Mayor Wu was in Canada.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She was in Toronto because they hosted Mayor Tong from, I believe her name's Tong, from Toronto to Boston.
Oh,
And
okay.
he says he actually helped put that trip together.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, they're just up the street, Canada, so
Exactly. So these kind of like trade relations and international exchanges, even with a country close to us, is still very important. So again, a Quincy kid, you want to have a new interview opportunity, I can give you a name later.
Yeah, thanks, Tacky. Appreciate the tips. So economic bond bill done. What about the energy bill? Did that also get done?
I got that last night too.
Okay.
So that was signed into law, we believe. The Globe had a little bit of a confusing story if you read the Globe.
I didn't.
Yeah, it was very confusing who knew what, because the Globe made it sound like the governor's office and the Secretary of Energy's office was kind of a disconnect. So it was a little bit confusing story in the Globe, but in my understanding, it has also been signed into law. My understanding, there's been no vetoes. So
Okay.
unless that could change tomorrow or later today, whatever's filed to clerk. But I understand she vetoed only one thing in the Econ Dev bill regarding towing rate changes as effective date that needs to be adjusted, which is not a big deal. And then in the environmental bond that's been, I'm sorry, the economic development. Sorry, a little tired.
Energy.
Energy, yeah, or ease. uh, economic energy environments. The energy bond, energy bill didn't have many changes. I mean, as Toad said before, the big thing with the energy bill is the siting component.
Yeah,
There's a little bit of a trade-off here of Connecticut for them to buy some wind, we'll buy some nuclear off of them. And some expansion opportunities for other low or no carbon producing energy.
okay, all right. Anything else outstanding that needs to be done before the end of the year?
No, at this stage of the game, I'm going to tell you guys right now, certain bills are not going to make it out. I have almost no hope for the opiate bill to come out regarding substance abuse issues.
Hmm,
I really don't see them too far apart. They'll probably be taking up sometime early half of next year. When we come
okay.
back. Healthcare is actually three different kind of bills regarding drugs and hospitals and insurance, and we have like three different kind of bills floating around on that stuff, and it became a little bit complicated because all three touch each other.
I see.
So I suspect that that's not going to make it out. It's too many moving parts, and the House and Senate is far too different, far too different in philosophy about how to address healthcare issues. So I suspect again that will probably be addressed sometime in the first half of next year. This is all contingent on the Speaker and the Senate President making appointments. So if you see the Speaker, feel free to appoint me if you care to, Joe. Even though he's a Quincy guy and he's our friend, I mean, his job is to manage the House, not my personal feelings. Not like he doesn't care about me, he does. But I mean, I do understand and respect the fact that his job is to manage the House. So we'll see what the assignments look like. And we talked about this. I mean, I had the list of open assignments,
Yes.
chairs and vice chairs. So he's got a lot of decisions to make on the shuffle.
Yeah, a lot of leadership positions open for sure. But if I see him, Tacky, I'll put his feet to the fire just for you.
Yeah, just take it to task and speak. Right. I jest.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't think Ron's watching this. Let's hope not. But yeah, no, it's I think that's the setup for the chairs do kind of reflect the decisions of both branches on what direction you want to go in. I will tell you that I'm doubtful there'll be a major change in healthcare finance. John Lawn, actually my classmate from Watertown's done a pretty great job on holding things together on healthcare, and I'm doubtful Ron's going to change that one. But transportation chair is up, and it's the first time transportation chair has been up for people who don't remember the last transportation chair. I think it was Joe Wagner, and I think that was almost 20 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
So Bill Strauss has had that chair for a very long time, and it's a tasty chair for some members who want to try to do some transportation issues, especially in a regional level. It's not people think, oh, it's creating constituent service in a level. It's really regional thinking. It's transportation crosses cities and towns lines. So that's one's out there. Education, tasty committee. People think they can change education in a heartbeat. But I mean, very complicated issue, a lot of work involved.
Yeah, especially now with the change in the MCAS, that'll be a big one.
Yep, education committee is going to be charged to try to figure it out.
Right.
So labor and workforce, another important committee. Again, the Uber issue regarding rideshare unionization is probably going to up in labor and workforce. That is a vacant chair currently in the House. So in the Senate, just because the chairs now where they are doesn't mean they're going to stay there. I mean, when you next talk to John Keenan, he'll tell you that, but I'm going to tell you too. Just because you're a chair there now doesn't mean there won't be a shuffle.
Right. Yeah. So it's Karen Spilka is the Senate president. So we'll see that I've never actually spoken with her. So that might be put on my list too.
Oh, we have two things in common. I've never actually had a conversation with the Senate president.
Okay.
But people tend to forget. I remember when she showed up in the Senate for the first time, and I worked for Michael Morrissey because she replaced David Minani, who left midstream in a special election scenario. So sometimes people forget. I remember when they showed up and where they've been.
That Tacky, he's been around. Look out for him. He knows.
I remember not everything, but I remember a few things. It comes in handy. Institutional knowledge can come in handy. And I tell a lot of stories, as you can tell from these podcasts over many years now. Enjoy telling stories, but also tell a lot of stories to newly electeds. And sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're not. But I mean, the story is a lesson in itself because it's kind of how I teach people things. I tell you the story. I tell you a story, and then that's the lesson in itself. A story. So
yeah, I mean, you can't move forward unless you know if you know what happened in the past.
Yeah, and like I said, knowing how things work, doesn't hurt. And they said I observe. One of my colleagues mentioned to me that while spent most of my life in government, actually all my adult life working in government. And I wish I could have traveled more. I wish I could have done some other things differently in terms of like getting out and seeing the world more. As I get older, I would like to see the world more because I think you learn more from seeing things that have nothing to do with you and be educated by exposure.
Yes.
I do observe.
Yes. Well, what's the saying? The cure for ignorance is travel.
Yeah, it's learning how other lives work. I mean, I love tourist sites, but I also love sitting at malls or shopping
Mhm.
locations or street markets or whatever, and just seeing how people live. And you learn a lot. And then, you sometimes pick up random kinds of conversation and travel. All of us have picked up random conversation. And, people want to be talkative, let them talk.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, think about if a visitor here were to go, to say a historic site, the Adams National Park, for instance. You know what you're going to expect, but you want to go to, I don't know, South Shore Plaza, you're going to get a whole different experience.
No, 100% correct. And I think that's kind of the thing. People may know I like to visit some place more than once because the first time I get it's like learning the lay of the land.
Mhm.
Second time you go and I know the lay of the land, it's a little easier to get around.
Yeah. I know we like to talk about the economy on this podcast sometimes. What do you think's going on now with the economy?
But the macro data still tends to be very confusing because a lot of it's in kind of peculiar conflict. And as we talked many times now, the macro data Main Street doesn't connect. People uh, don't see the macro data actually helping them at this kitchen table level. And I and you are feeling it. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, that we both talk about grocery bills for Pete's sakes on a regular basis here, right? So, it's intriguing because gas prices continue to decline. That means either we have a shortage of usage or we have an oversupply.
Mm,
I'm going to bet it's really an oversupply of
yeah.
fuels. I mean, we're using, we are pumping and refining way too much oil and gas, which is driving the price down, which is good for you and me. Um, and it's good for reducing the cost of transport of goods. So that should help stabilize some of those inflationary costs, should hopefully help. But the GDP is projected to be near 3%. Today's economic indicators have shown that we're still seemingly in a negative growth, even though the GDP is up. So
Mm.
the indicators don't make any sense. And consumer confidence is low, but October was a bumper shopping month.
That's the bizarre disparity, but that's going on right now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and core PCE is kind of starting to get sticky, just under 3%. So it's probably going to stay that 2.7 to 3% zone. It's still trying to fight its way to 2%, as well as conventional CPI, consumer price index stuff, is
Mm.
still sticky between that same range, just trying to stay under that 3% zone. Wages have really stagnated now. It's at 0.4% growth year after year. Mind you, it's year after year, not month after month. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's it's again how you look at this information does matter. But we're sitting on an economy that's approaching $28 trillion GDP nationally. That means the Massachusetts economy is growing relatively similar pace, and places are hiring as government and healthcare,
Mm.
or retiring or leaving, and for better money or whatever. And but there's also a shortage in those areas. And Massachusetts healthcare is a big part of our economy.
Yes. Yeah.
And travel's up, but retail's down. Travel has not really been totally killed off. People still traveling, people driving, flying. But you see retail's having a tough time. Target's terrible numbers this week, right? If you like Target, you're going to find that they're going to doing some serious cost cutting going to Christmas, and certain places will be doing better than others because different social economics, and again, the middle class and lower going down to the lower classes of income, suffered the most in an inflationary environment. So, what are things going on? I think we're still in this real mixed signals where things are tough to meet on costs. I do think the new administration's biggest priority in the short run is trying to manage inflation and bring down costs without destroying the economy. They always talk about lowering interest rates, which creates more access to capital. But then again, you have more access to capital, it also creates inflationary situations.
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
no, now you have more competition for less available items, which drives up price.
Right.
But I mean, today's data on first-time home buyers is down. The average is 40%. First-time home buyers now down to 27%.
Yeah, wow. Okay, that's a significant drop. Yeah.
And on a national level, rotation of homes is 4 months, well, 4.2, but about 4 months is the rotation. So it's still very low rotation.
Yeah.
Interest rates are floating around 7% of the 30-year mortgage.
Yeah.
I suspect even the rates go down, you might get to a mortgage rate still about between 5.75 and 6% in the long term. In the
Yeah.
long, in the
All
bond,
these numbers are, yeah, just they're standing individually, and there doesn't seem to be a general flow.
no, because generally when you have low home sales, it's a sign of economy declining
Right.
and jobs. I'll be shocked if we get anywhere close 5% employment. I mean, I think we may top out at 4.3 on a
Yeah.
national, and the state's always 1% lower than the national number on a generally speaking, on a good economy. So it's maximum employment for purposes of Massachusetts. That's considered maximum employment.
Mhm.
You rotate. People don't stay unemployment forever. They
Mhm.
can rotate in and rotate it out, which means that as soon as you get someone out of a job for whatever reason, someone else just found a new job, which is why the number stays steady.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's really confusing. And I think retail is going to have a hard time. I think they're going to do massive slashes on prices on Black Friday, do massive slashes on prices on Christmas. I think they're going to say it's quote unquote a record number of sales again. But when you start factoring the price cuts and they're competing against Walmart and Amazon, not just brick and mortar. I mean, Macy's is competing against Walmart and Amazon. They have a digital presence. Best Buy has a digital presence. They're competing against Walmart. Target has a digital presence. They're competing against Walmart and Amazon too. So you got all these other companies that we consider brick and mortar, but they already have a digital presence. Right? They're doing a price competition as well against other the conventional online, and Walmart has become a major online player in terms of purchasing items. So I think it's going to be quote unquote record sales, but I think those numbers are going to be somewhat deceptive against the cost, against the sales you have to put up to get shoppers to come. And then the next big one is I keep forgetting this exists. Travel Tuesday.
Travel Tuesday. First I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, followed by Travel Tuesday.
Oh, and Small Business Saturday too. Don't forget.
So Business Saturday. So going to Thanksgiving, you have 4 major events trying to promote economic growth, and travel sites and airlines and hotels will do massive sales digitally on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Oh, I did that first I've ever heard of that. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's been really talked about because that's part of the economy as well. That's been really important. But even things that are considered budget, like Spirit Airlines is going bankrupt.
I know. Yeah.
I hear terrible things about the airline.
Is that right?
Yeah, but still, I mean, a major airline, because they do go to a lot of places, is going bankrupt. And the Biden administration blocked a JetBlue Spirit merger.
Right.
This is kind of things I fault the Biden administration on, is that you now basically cost consumers a lot of routes because you didn't let Spirit merge with JetBlue.
Yeah. I know they were afraid of a monopoly, I guess, but here's the result.
Here's the result. Consumers are going to get hurt in the end for the prevention of a merger, because these routes are going to be abandoned, because airlines do not keep spare planes lying around because suddenly a route opens up. I mean, every plane has to be on the move or being in repair or maintained.
Yeah, you don't make money on a plane sitting on the tarmac. Yeah,
that's correct. There's no such thing as plane in storage. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there. It doesn't affect us per se up here in the sense that it affects us economically, but it does affect us because it affects your ability to travel to particularly southern and Midwest states.
Right, or them to come here.
Yeah, and it's budget. It's relatively budget, meaning it's really cheap. I mean, you're taking some sacrifices on a cheaper airline. So we'll see if they're going to come out of bankruptcy or not. And now they're in bankruptcy. It's kind of less incentive for when the other airlines want to buy them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they lost their value. Yeah.
So the Trump administration is going to have to deal with this kind of, this real legit crisis on transportation regarding a death of an airline.
It's really just, yeah, I mean, it's really still hasn't come back to quote unquote normal since the pandemic.
Well, you also got used to very low interest rates, right? Since the 2008 financial crisis, the Fed Reserve had been keeping interest rates under 1%. We got comfortable with that. Yeah, your bank account was horrific because you got no interest in your bank account. CDs were terrible. Bonds were terrible, but you had a very strong stock market. You had a lot of small business opening up. You had a lot of innovation business opening up. Like all biotech is high risk, small businesses, small research, but they actually had like a revolving credit with almost no interest. Credit line was incredible. Silicon Valley Bank's an example of that. They were a low interest Silicon Valley targeted bank that works towards not just the Googles of the world, but also entrepreneurial small tech companies use them, but for lines of credit to keep them solvent.
Right.
As they kind of try to find new money, they had to borrow money to keep the operation going, but when you have near zero interest rates, it's almost free. And then inflation was relatively low because wages, those of us remember, wages didn't move because my pay is tied to your pay, actually.
Yeah.
I'm the medium household income, so I had 6 years of no movement. Really came down to it. 2 years decline, 1 year no movement, and 1 year barely moves. Basically 8 years of like my money not moving either.
Right. Right, but also it didn't have to really, because the cost of living was steady.
Yeah, cost of living wasn't moving either because even your wages weren't flying.
Right.
Cost of living wasn't even flying, other than housing, which everyone felt the pinch, post-financial crisis in particular.
Yeah.
Your general costs weren't. Insurance was relatively good. Energy prices were stable, relatively speaking. Food prices were fairly stable. So yeah, you weren't making a ton of money, but you also weren't like your cost wasn't really moving that much either.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
This was right up to 2018. Through the Obama administration and into the people don't give Obama's administration enough credit. The Obama administration.
He actually said that recently. Yeah.
Oh, it is so true. I mean, he navigated 2 major recessions and put us in a very stable economic environment, making very tough decisions to preserve jobs, especially the car industry represents, when you look at the car industry, the big three, the manufacturing is all people think about, but it's like almost like 5 to 7% of all jobs in the country is tied to the car industry, even though they're not in a manufacturing plant because of the trickle effect they have on a national level.
Right.
So, I mean, he did a lot of tough calls that panned out right up to the beginning of the Trump administration, who actually was riding this really, really good situation where you could, like I said last time out, tariffs is a sales tax by the federal government for instances on your goods. But inflation was so low, interest rates were low, wages were steady but not growing out of control, that you could weather this federal tariffs on your, particularly a lot of it was on low end products and agriculture. I mean, things like chocolate and vanilla were kind of crazy, but for the most part, your day-to-day items was not badly affected. And then you hit COVID, and then we felt the shortages there, and things got nuts. And then we came out of COVID, and everything stabilized for half a blink, and then it stopped stabilizing, and everything's the economy completely became nonsense in terms of traditional economic.
Yeah.
And through the Biden administration, he's stuck with hyperinflation.
Yeah.
And the Fed Reserve, hadn't had to deal with this since the dot-com boom back in the 90s in particular. And then they were like flipping rates a little too quickly back and forth because they were having problems trying to figure out how to balance this out. And the stock market responded to that. And if you're in a financial crisis in your retirement age, if you're listening to this, you had this really ugly decision because your retirement fund got completely destroyed. Your 401k destroyed during the financial crisis, and you had stagnated stock market for a few years, without until you had some real growth around 2015. You finally got your pension, your retirement fund back to like where it was before the
just making up for losses. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you hit 2022 in the first half. It was all gangbusters. That was the time to get out if you're retirement age.
Right.
Before it crashed again. Now it's all gangbusters again. You couldn't predict this, right? You can't predict the stock market.
Right. And you can't discount the international pressures too, in Ukraine and Israel.
Yeah, I mean, Ukraine and Israel in particular affects oil prices, but you look at the gas prices, you look at the cost of home heating oil. I mean, it's not low. It's like not pre-pandemic low.
No.
But I mean, we're staying at like $4 a gallon at one point in Massachusetts, like $8 a gallon in California, right? Home heating oil was tipping over like $3.50 a gallon. I mean, that was a triggered effect from the Ukraine war, trigger effect from the Gaza war, right? There's all these effects, and it's still going on. The Houthis are still shooting at ships in the Red Sea. Just because it isn't in the news doesn't mean it's not happening, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, some reason somehow we're stabilized, and the Biden administration doesn't get enough credit because the environmentalists are angry at Biden because of the fact that he, baby drill is actually a Biden thing, believe it or not, and he fracked completely, fracking incredibly. If you're anti-fracking, you should hate the Biden administration. And he reactivated the oil refineries, basically had them do maximum capacity. And we're now the biggest fossil fuel exporter on the planet. We export more fossil fuels and natural gas in particular on a
Yes.
global scale. We do.
Yeah, he opened up the petroleum reserves as well a couple of times. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are the single biggest producer of fossil fuels now on the planet. It's not China, it's not the Russians, it's not any country in the Middle East. And that's under the Biden administration, which had stabilized the fuel prices to try to keep inflation down or try to keep them flying more.
Right.
Trying to stabilize the European dependence on Russian natural gas. I mean, I've never seen no one's ever seen a war where you're basically, embargoing a trading partner that you're dependent on, which is Europe and Russia's natural gas issue. And again, this isn't like 100 years ago where you're just like, well, just blow up the pipelines and we're just going to cut everything off. It's a different world we live in regarding how you respond to these incursions in other people's countries. And
yes, it's a much more an international world now. So sure, yeah.
It's globalization.
Right.
And I think Putin miscalculated the level people will take on to protect themselves from them, because he figures they'll just all capitulate because we're weak. Democracies are weak. People we're so weak that we won't pay more for the price of freedom. I mean, he believes that. If you believe that, you've got a problem. I'm telling you right now. If you believe that, you will not pay for the price of freedom because you basically you pay into Putin's hands. Same thing with the Chinese government. They would think we're so weak that we're afraid of high prices.
Yeah. Well, they're still in the Cold War in their minds,
Well, they also have a massive unemployment. They have, industrial complex really designed for mostly war, and they have poor trading partners. I mean, Putin actually was probably not the best thing for the Russian economy because they were actually moving gradually to free market. And then he was trying to create the Soviet Union again by creating trade pacts and limited trading partners, and that didn't work. And that's where he is now. I mean, if not for nuclear weapons, I mean, I'm just like, we got North Korean troops for help for Pete. I mean, come on,
people. I know.
Come on. You're requesting help from North Korea, which troops have never fought, never done anything. No, really, they have never been in military conflict. North Korea soldiers, today's modern North Korean army has never been in a conflict.
So. Not since the Korean War, right? In the 50s, yeah.
Yeah, and those got this new troop of 20-somethings, and they're now in a foreign country, doesn't speak the language, and expected to do supply line and perhaps some cannon fodder, sadly, for the Russian army. And I mean, no major military country should need to borrow troops from other countries.
Be like us asking Canada for help.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Essentially not wrong. It's the same principle, right? We're going to rent troops from you. And I don't remember the last time you saw a country actually became mercenary like this, because that's essentially what it is. We're paying you to use your people.
Yeah, well, that goes back to the Revolutionary War when Britain used France.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just I've never seen anything like this. So, so I mean, there's these global push and pulls. Of course, the onshoring, and onshoring includes places like Mexico and Canada. People forget Canada. Canada is actually part of American onshoring that we're going to have to deal with as well, and the impacts of such. And this is the first time I've seen technology companies, not just Elon Musk but others, trying to influence the federal government and how they operate. And I have a very skepticism regarding technology executives regarding how they think of human beings. Actually,
it's kind of short-term thinking, I think, mostly.
It is. Silicon Valley is not long-term planners.
No,
it never have been. They're all about the now, but also how they perceive human beings. Like we talk about privacy of Meta and things like that. I mean,
oh yeah,
many other companies, not just that one, and how they frame people, right? That's troubling. And then you still got the EU that's kind of recovering. Canada's having some issues. Mexico is now in decline because they don't know what's going to happen internationally. It's not immigration of migrants in Mexico. It's about will we fit as trading partners? That's the big question mark with Mexico. And of course, you got the China question, and you still got Japan and Australia and Korea. You got the Taiwan question out there.
Mhm.
And and whether or not we're going to continue to export democratic principles, right? I mean, it's always been U.S. policy since the Cold War that we would export democratic principles. You don't have to be like us exactly, but we promote our, we're good. We have a good way of life. We promote it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
India is a great example, I think, right?
India is the next world power that's coming up economically. I mean, they rapidly jumped into the top 10 GDP, which they're wallowing in the 20s not that long ago.
Right.
The question with that country is that, unlike China, can they create infrastructure quickly? One of the benefits of a totalitarian government is that when they needed to build a power plant, they built a power plant.
Oh, it can do it, in a month, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when U.S. companies went to China, one of the problems is infrastructure. The Chinese basically paid it themselves. Well, basically they're very poor at the time in the 80s, but they're going to bite the bullet and receive the benefit of a workforce that can pay taxes. Communist countries do pay taxes. People have this misconception they don't. They pay taxes. So they would do a trade-off, giving no taxes to foreign companies. Foreign companies wouldn't have to pay a tax. And then they would build the infrastructure and then use the taxes from the workers to recover the money for the infrastructure. And it worked. When you have nothing, it works. It's been proven over again. When you're a country that's little nothing there, it works. But when you're
well, I mean, you don't need approval from Congress or anything. You just do it.
well, there's also like no permitting, no environmental.
No, that too, yeah.
Right. India is not the same as China. They do have, equivalent of some kind of EPA. I know it's very smoggy in the big cities, but they are working on things like that. And they have to make the place attractive. The biggest benefit of India is actually education. The urban areas are they have a lot of educated folks in the urban areas.
Yes. Oh, certainly. Yes.
So it's a huge country, massive diversity of workforce from well educated as well as low skilled. The question is always the same with me: is can they get clean water, sewer, natural gas, and electricity built quickly?
Yep, that's going to be the key for sure. I think they will. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah, the question is how quickly they can move. And Modi is not having a stable situation. I mean, he did not win a majority government. He had a former coalition parliamentary government, much to the shock of everyone. And then, he's trying to settle those border disputes. China and India have a lot of border disputes. And India is trying to play all sides. They've recognized they're a big enough economy now where they can be part of the BRICS, which is the British, not the British, BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America, and then they allowed some other smaller countries in. They'll be part of that big trading bloc, but they're also part of the big, G20 global trading, and then they want to be our partner, but they also want to be part of China and Russia. But they also want to build their own military complex because they don't want to be dependent on buying Chinese, U.S., and Russian weapons. Which, by the way, if you're a country buying 3 different weapons, means you do 3 different weapon systems, 3 different type of maintenance, with 3 different type of parts. This is not a great way to run a military.
Yeah, very expensive at the least, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's keeping the peace with the various countries that you buy from everybody. You can keep the peace, but internally, that's very ineffective in terms of maintenance. So, I mean, they want to build their own military complex because it creates national security. And so, I mean, and they also I don't really saw a strike on farm deregulation of farm prices. They had to pull back on agricultural deregulation. And they have a ton of environmental problems. A lot of quality to dust storms, and they have the Kashmir question. Yeah, I do pay a little attention to South Asia, and then Pakistan's nuclear power next door, which is I never realized how poor that country was until you really look at every time a natural disaster hits. It's like, wow, you're basically a subsidy country with a nuclear bomb.
Interesting. Yeah.
And they got that you got always the potential destabilization next door where their parliament's a mess. But India is really well positioned. They have, they control a major waterway. The Indian Ocean is theirs in terms of waterway control. And they have a lot going for it. But at the end of the day, it's very simple: infrastructure. You got infrastructure, and you got economic development.
Yeah, I mean, why we're seeing such an investment here in this country of infrastructure, it's critical.
Yeah, and this is a Massachusetts challenge, right? We're really new gas lines are not gonna easily happen. You have an aging transmission system that actually the energy bill helps address the transmission system.
Mhm.
As you all know, a big fan of energy efficiency, big fan of turning off the lights, big fan of better light bulbs, because the less power you use, the less strain it is on the grid,
Mhm.
right? And it's good for your pocketbook too, right? And anything that promotes higher electrical usage, puts more stress on the grid. So
Yeah.
not like I'm anti-electric cars or heat pumps, but you have to be aware there is a price to be paid for those,
Mhm.
in
Yep.
addition to the electrical grid. So, so yeah, I mean, we have our own challenges here, and not just in the eastern side, but people forget Central Mass and Western Mass have higher unemployment rates than Eastern Mass, and they need infrastructure. And even the Cape, because of COVID, has become unnecessarily four season, and you don't have four season infrastructure for large quantities of people, because that's what
No.
happened with COVID.
Right. No, you don't. It's not, it was never set up that way. It's a tourist's, economy.
And you cannot build sewer lines through wetlands.
Right. And so yeah, and you have limited land. It's peninsula.
It's a different type of environmental problem in
Yeah.
construction, because the nature of the environmental sensitivity makes it very difficult to build infrastructure, particularly underground infrastructure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of challenges in the state regarding economic development. It all stems from better infrastructure.
Hmm.
I mean, the speaker put into the housing bond bill, MWA water expansion
Mhm.
into Weymouth and Point South, because you don't have water, you have no development.
That's
They
right.
didn't,
It's key.
yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't survive the housing bond bill, unfortunately, in conference. But it's again another reflection of the fact that you need water. Isn't Attleboro? I think it's Attleboro. I think Attleboro's trying to do a water plan of somewhere in Rhode Island.
Yes, it was Attleboro. Yeah.
Yeah, they just don't have enough water.
Yeah.
As the population grows, the water's demand goes up. Yeah, same thing. I mean, Brockton's always had a water problem.
Yeah.
They've always been trying to work a deal out with, again, Rhode Island, and whether they can do desalination or not, which is always a talk, but it's super duper expensive. Only the wealthy countries do desalination. So, I mean, these are things that I won't say keep me up at night, but this is something that the administration has to deal with. And it's a balancing act, right? We have a lot of environmental concerns, which is important. We have limited space, but if we don't provide proper infrastructure, you got nothing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It stalemates and then eventually it starts to retrograde.
That's right. Once you have a stagnant economy, there's nowhere to go but down.
Right. Yeah.
And you're looking at China now; they've stagnated. They need to figure out how to deal with it. I mean, their last economic stimulus package proposal of I think $1.4 trillion US dollars was just to help pay the debts for the regional governments.
Mm.
They hide their national debt in the regional governments, and they discovered this was unattainable. And regional governments have almost no autonomy, so they kind of like have to do what Beijing tells them, and Beijing makes bad decisions. They have to live with the consequences.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, but that doesn't create economic stimulus. Stimulus is money in you and my pocket creates economic stimulus.
Oh, so much to think about, Tacky. Let's talk about the holidays instead.
For the holidays, well, it's a little early. I don't know. We're going to talk again next week, but I mean, the city does an incredible job over Thanksgiving weekend. So, I mean, if you love the Christmas holiday, definitely get out there. You've been seeing banners around the city for different school holiday fairs for people who want to go explore those things. The church holiday fairs will be coming along as well in the month of December, and we have Pearl Harbor Day in a couple of weeks. There'll be more for that. But I mean, yeah, I mean, we're going to be food blown to the holiday season very quickly. And again, I've always say this again, the different neighborhoods in the city as well as the city itself does a really good job on providing family-friendly entertainment.
There's some fun neighborhood tree lightings too that folks can attend, with their own neighbors, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I sometimes get noticed, sometimes I don't get noticed. Again, I'm not offended, folks. I'm not. But yeah, I mean, you got the House Neck fire station. I suspect you're going to do the lobster trap tree lighting.
Probably, yes.
which is actually pretty cool. I'm waiting for my housing bulletin. My newsletter is part of the housing bulletin if people are interested. There's the Adam Shore tree lighting, which is really just contained to that neighborhood. You have the Walson tree lighting across from Walson School. You have the Squantum tree lighting. Let's see.
Quincy Point has one.
Quincy Point has
down at the
one.
Rotary, yep.
Obviously, City Hall has one.
Yep.
Um,
I think,
where
Ward 4 used to do one. I'm not sure if they will or not.
yeah, I'm trying to think where they would do it. I don't think they do. Trying to think where else. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of these neighborhood events that are happening around the city. So, and I encourage participation. You know, spend some time with your neighbors in person.
Yes, yes. Will we see you in the Christmas parade this year?
We'll see how the weather is.
Okay. Oh, sure.
My turn to ankle. I know I'm sounding like making excuses, but this weather has not been good for joints.
We'll have a little cardboard cutout of you if not.
Or you can have someone carry it, just hold it in front of them.
Oh, there you go.
We'll see how it goes. I believe it or not, one of actually the strangest things about it, elected life of the parade is other folks is just getting to the parade start.
Oh, really?
Because they already start closing everything around it.
Yes, that's true.
And I know, I joke you not. I have to remind the city cops who I am so I can stop and get out.
Well, they're all 20 now, so they don't know you, Techie.
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
Yeah, they need to be old folks like us, then they'll know who you are.
It's gotta be. Well, yeah, I know. You're reminding everybody I age too. But no, it is a real thing. Again, it's not a complaint. It's just life. It's just life I live.
That's right.
I think people don't realize I have these kind of different challenges. And you can surmise different reasons why, but I just kind of have to like work with it.
I see. All right.
I mean, it's not just on Beacon Hill, but also locally in Quincy. But as you guys know, I do some international stuff too. So playing good diplomat representing the state of Massachusetts, and also it's just it's a lot of layers. I'm telling folks regarding this job. There's so many different components. And I like to do the job the best I can. Some days work out, some days don't. Let's be frank about it. But it's still a lot of fun, and keeps me busy.
Yeah, I know. Next year, Quarry is going to be having a big. I think it's a 23rd anniversary, something like that.
Yeah, their actually anniversary date of incorporation is November 20th. It was yesterday.
Oh, very good. Okay.
So that's actually the date of incorporation. But obviously, the date of incorporation, you're not tied to that.
Yeah.
I mean, the annual dinner they do in May is kind of like an unofficial birthday party.
Yep.
That they do. But I mean, the agency, was doing surprisingly well, and especially as I remind folks, I helped form an agency right around 2001 November, right now, after 9/11. And then had to get through the dot-com bust recession. We had to figure a way to survive that as a young agency. Then we had to survive the financial crisis, and then try to get through COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it really has grown tremendously.
Yeah, it came into a lot of immediate challenges for a small not-for-profit.
Yes.
And I give a lot of credit to the board. I give a lot of credit to a lot of, actually to all the donors and volunteers to help float this thing, and give it a chance to grow. And under the current leadership has really become a new type of service agency, changing the economic model of just strictly brick and mortar.
Yes, right. Yep, exactly. It's expanded now. It's Rhode Island, New York City too. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's moving away from the conventional brick and mortar human services, and I think that's forward thinking and novel thinking. Yep. And there's always be a space for brick and mortar, but the philosophy of bringing services to people, and getting people jobs. I mean, helping a job creates a degree of independence, and then maybe in a low wage job that needs some human services to help support them, but you provide the human services and a job, they eventually leave the human services and they grow.
It's a start, right? Exactly. It gives people a start. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the end of the hour again.
No, quickly times flies.
Talking
other countries and Beacon Hill and Christmas parties,
the economy, Tackie's Thanksgiving Day tradition, everything.
The Thanksgiving Day menu will be more reviewed next week. And then, the holidays and Christmas will be here before I know it. Wednesday, Christmas, Wednesday, New Year's.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long month in a short month away. It's gonna feel very strange. And and again, there's a lot of things going on around us. And before you blink, you know, it's gonna be a new election cycle coming up for the municipal level.
That's right. Yes. Not a mayoral, but city council and a couple of school committee seats too.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how next year's go on the local level.
Stay tuned for that.
I like to observe what's happening around me. But as always, I mean, it's another as we get to the holidays, it's great to see you, Joe, and obviously appreciate the QATV folks, and I'm always very thankful for to have a job. I mean, I think some people take things for granted, and I most certainly do not. I've always been very happy to have a job.
We are happy to let you talk to the community. It's our mission here too.
Yeah, yeah, it's that's simple in my life. Thankful for relatively okay health. Have a job, family's doing okay, and and everyone around me, all my friends, family are doing okay right now, and I think that's simple enough to be thankful for.
So how can folks link up with you?
617-722-2370, 617-722-2370 is the number. Room 42 in the State House. We are still there until the speaker decides to move me somewhere else. But keep me there. We're room 42. We actually have to plan our holiday parties, actually. The offices will have holiday parties in December. You may stumble into one depending when you show up. We have tacky.chan at mahouse.gov, tackey.chan at mahouse.gov. That's the email. I do check my emails. You all know constituent services come first, but I do read them all. We do have State Representative Tacky Chan Facebook. There'll be actually some good pictures coming up. Uncle Sam's 85th birthday party, among other things, will be up there, as well as X. We use at Tacky Chan at X. Obviously, at malegislature.gov. malegislature.gov is the state legislature's website. Again, I always strongly encourage use state legislature's website. And of course, we're at QATV once a week and once every 2 weeks, talking about topics. And obviously, if you like to talk about something that I did not talk about or Joe's not talking about, contact Joe. It is his show. I'm just a guest.
A long-term guest and the most frequent one now, Tacky.
But I like to say it's my podcast when things go well. It's your podcast when things go bad.
All right, I'll take that. That's fine. I can live with that. Thank you so much. I'm not sure about next week yet, but if not, please, very happy, healthy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Same to you, Joe, and let's put on a little weight next week.
Sounds good. All right, thanks, Tacky.